This Toyota is the sister to a car that I reviewed way back in January 2026, and that car is the Subaru Solterra. So this car and that car, exactly the same, right? Or are they? Well, the answer is kind of yes and no, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Yes, because the Subaru Solterra and this Toyota have the same core technology, same batteries, same chassis, same dimensions, so I think I'm just going to chill out today.
It's not that I'm lazy, it's that I just don't care.
Just kidding, there are differences between the two. Some of them are teeny tiny and some of them are pretty major, so stick around because today I'm going to be reviewing Toyota's first pure electric vehicle, and I'm going to break down how it's different from its sister car, the Subaru Solterra, right here in Singapore. And who knows, after watching this, you might be able to decide for yourself which one is right for you, or if you should be even considering them at all. Now, when two car makers collaborate like this, it's because they want to share costs. And don't forget, Toyota owns roughly 20% of Subaru, so this is a joint project that makes sense. But let's leave the Solterra aside and start from scratch. The Toyota you see here is a pure electric crossover with 5 seats and 5 doors. It's actually a facelift and technical update of the first bZ4X, which came out in 2022 but never actually officially went on sale in Singapore. It's just under 4.7 meters long and it's 1.86 meters wide, so it's a wee bit smaller than the Tesla Model Y, although it is ever so slightly taller. The wheelbase is exactly 2.85 meters long, so just about the same as the current BMW 3 Series. It's late March as I filmed this, and the price for a bZ4X starts at $220,888 with a category B COE. This car is pure electric, so what you really want to know is that the battery capacity is 69 kilowatt hours. You're going to see 73.1 kilowatt hours elsewhere, but 69 is the net usable capacity. It's NMC chemistry, so, well, try not to charge to 100% too often. Charging speed? Well, the AC charging is now 22 kilowatts, and that can take you from 10 to 100% in 3.5 hours. The DC charging is 150 kilowatts, and that's quick enough to get you from 20 to 80% in 28 minutes. So that's decently quick. You can have some coffee, grab some groceries. Oh, and I'm sure you've noticed that the charging flap is here in the front of the car. Now, usually I complain like heck about that, but just the other night I managed to reverse this car into a spot and I managed to reach this port with the charging gun. So the moral there is, if you have enough length, you can feel free to pack it in. What about the range, I hear you say? Well, that is 478 kilometers WLTP, and that's enough for, well, most people in Singapore to go way more than 1 week before having to charge. Well, okay, let's call it once a week charging just to be safe, because it's always good to have some buffer, right? And that is actually the first major difference between this and the Solterra. It has a little bit more range, like 42 kilometers extra range, which means that on average you would have to charge that car 1 day earlier. And the reason for that? Well, the Subaru has 2 motors and all-wheel drive, whereas this car is single motor, front-wheel drive. So yeah, it does have less power. I've got 227 horsepower in front of me, whereas the Subaru has 343 horsepower. Less torque as well, 268 Newton meters of peak torque, compared to the Subaru's mighty 437 Newton meters. So overall, I would say that this feels like a good 2-liter turbo, whereas the Solterra feels like it has a mighty 3-liter turbo. And that means it does consume more energy than this car, although this car is slower as well. Mind you, slower doesn't actually mean slow, because, well, 0 to 100 is 7.4 seconds in this car, and it does feel lively. When you punch it, the numbers on the speedo go up pretty quickly. So yeah, this is a nice and lively car. Of course, the Subaru is even more nice and even more lively. It takes only 5.1 seconds to hit 100, and that's like Porsche Macan electric kind of fast. I think it's a little bit faster, but there's a price to pay for that. And that price is a recurring one, because here in Singapore, electric vehicles are taxed based on how much horsepower they have. So the Subaru Solterra with 343 horsepower has an annual tax bill of $3,482. But the bZ4X with 227 horsepower has a tax bill of $1,896 a year. So quite a bit of difference over there, at least here in Singapore. I tell you what though, they are actually pretty different over here as well. I mean, it's not just a Toyota badge over here, they have different front end designs. This one totally looks like a Toyota because it has that hammerhead design that all the latest Toyotas have. And oh yeah, check out this lovely light bar that stretches across the front over here. Nice touch. And those are daytime running lights. These are the actual headlights. Okay, over at the side now, it's almost impossible to tell the two cars apart because they have the same silhouette, the same profile, the same sort of coupe SUV-like styling almost. They even have the same like black wheel arches over here. Oh yeah, the Subaru has 20-inch wheels, well this car has 20-inch wheels, and the two cars even have the same pull-out door handles, which I find not only convenient but are apparently safer as well. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time saying what's same and what's different. You can watch my Solterra review, but it is very similar back here. They have the same sort of 3-wing design, and I think the sheet metal is going to be the same because this stuff is expensive. Like the dies at the factory for one body panel can run into millions when you have a series of them, and when you scale up to a whole car body, that can add up to hundreds of millions. So the cheap thing to change are all the bolt-on bits like this over here, and that's why, well, the Subaru has those lobster-shaped tail lamps, and this one has this Y-shaped thing going on over here. Now then, 看我的功夫. Okay, you have a claimed 452 litres back here, which is actually slightly more than Subaru claims for the Solterra, 11 litres more. Don't know where that extra space comes from, but beyond the numbers, well, this is a Toyota, so you can expect some convenient or thoughtful features here and there, such as these hooks over here. I've got one here as well. You can use those for like grocery bags, so let's pretend this is a bag of apples or a bag of beer, like whatever catches your fancy. So that will keep that from rolling around. And if you are wondering about a luggage cover, well, yes, there is one, and it even has its own little space down here, which I like very much. There is a little bit of compartment space underneath there, which is part of the 452. And beyond the numbers, it's not actually all that deep back here. Let me show you what I mean. I've got my wife's favorite shopping bag over here. And if I want to stand it upright over here, well, I'm not so sure if the tailgate will actually close, but you can actually borrow a bit of room from here by putting the seat backs more upright, like so. And yeah, that just lets you squeeze that little bit more in. But overall, okay, I'm quite happy about this flat floor as well. You can drop the floor a little bit if you want a bit more loading height. But yeah, I was going to say that overall, well, many Chinese EVs offer more than 500 litres of space, and definitely sure that the Tesla Model Y has more boot space back here. So I'm not super impressed with how much you get back here. And that brings me very neatly to 3 things I dislike about the Toyota bZ4X. Okay, the first thing I don't like about this car is you get exactly 0 litres of frunk space. Instead, you get a whole bunch of wires and inverters, motor controllers, that sort of thing. Okay, what Toyota needs to understand is that frunks are not about practicality, they are about bragging rights. When you drive an electric car, you want to show the world that you are a better person than everybody else. You want to be able to say, my car has a frunk, does your car have a frunk? Okay, if you drive a Porsche 911, then shut up. Even worse than that, there is no glove compartment. I mean, I'm just kind of feeling around underneath here. There's a panel, but it doesn't open up or anything. So yeah, I mean, maybe you don't use your car's frunk, but I'm pretty sure you use the glove box, right? So now, well, what am I supposed to do with these? Okay, the third thing I don't like about this car is all the way back here, and yep, it is the name of the car, bZ4X. What car do you drive, man? Oh, I've got a bZ4X. I mean, what? That's kind of a mouthful and it's kind of strange as well, right? So yeah, let's unpack this over here. It's full of meaning. So BZ stands for beyond zero, as in beyond zero carbon, beyond zero emissions. So this car kind of invites you to imagine a world beyond all that, which is kind of noble. But the 4X, well, if you are in the great Australian state of Queensland, then yeah, 4X means you're in for a good time, right? But over here, this tells you about the size of the car. The 4 tells you that this car is roughly the same size and class as a Toyota RAV4, and then the X tells you that this is supposed to be a crossover. So really, it's like they allowed the accounting department to name this car. Okay, there's plenty to like back here, but before I give you a tour of the back, if you are finding this video remotely amusing or helpful, please consider subscribing. We are a tiny channel and we're trying to grow into a small one, so thank you very much. Okay, so let's start with the space back here because I have quite a lot of it. I mean, I'm 1.75 meters tall, and this is more or less the position I would sit in the front, and you can see I've got loads of room over here. I'm actually okay for headroom as well, and well, you know that if I need a bit more, I can kind of borrow a bit from the boot. Recline this, it was already reclined, so let me straighten that up and I can show you that I'm still okay for headroom. You do get a nice flat floor, but oh, there is a little bit of a hump here, but nothing too much. And my knees are kind of high up right now because, well, that's where the battery of the car is, but I do have enough space that I can just compensate like so. In terms of what you get for amenities, well, I actually had space for 2 of these bottles in the door pockets over there, and if I pull this down, I've got a couple of cup holders here. I even have a slot for my phone, so that's quite nice. Oh yeah, okay, I've got a couple of USB-C charging ports over here, and the all-important aircon vents. These are must-have in our country. This car comes with seat heaters back here as well, and if you're wondering like, okay, who the heck needs seat heaters in Singapore? Well, there's a couple of ways that can happen. Like, one, we are a small market, so sometimes our cars kind of have to borrow the specification for another market. So these cars could be headed from, let's say, Japan to the UK, and our cars are kind of similar, part of that order. Or another way is that some features have to be bundled with other features. So let's say you want the front ventilated seats, which this car has, then you have to order them in conjunction with the heated rear seats. And that just kind of makes life easier for everyone at the factory by simplifying the ordering process. And that's how you end up with features in Singapore that you may or may not use. Anyway, when it comes to the ambience of the car, well, you know what? This isn't as spacious as a Tesla Model Y back here, I don't think, but it doesn't feel cramped in here, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, well, I'm not sure you can see this, but there's a nice little porthole over here which lets just a little bit of light into the cabin so it doesn't feel so dingy. And there is an overhead glass roof which lets light flood into the cabin, and you better believe there is a sunshade as well. I've extended it just a little bit to show you that there is one. So BMW, NIO, XPeng, Tesla, y'all could learn a thing or two from Toyota. Okay, let me take you on a quick tour of this place here. I'm sure you've noticed we've got a big touchscreen here that's 14 inches, and I have a 7-inch screen in front of me, the driver display. I have a round steering wheel as well, and the significance of that is, well, this is one of those cars that requires you to kind of look over the steering wheel instead of through it to see the driver displays. And the Subaru Solterra actually has a squarish one, so that's flattened down a little bit, and that's a little bit more ideal actually. I would love to have the steering wheel at this height, but kind of have to have it here so that I can see the instruments properly. So that is one difference between the two cars. Oh, and another difference is that the sound system in the Toyota is kind of a plain factory-fitted 6-speaker system. On the Subaru, you get an 11-speaker Harman Kardon system, which is more fancy. So if you're particular about sound systems, well, that's something to take note of. In terms of the general layout of the car, though, I don't really have any complaints at all because it looks and feels like a car. What I mean by that is, well, there are a lot of Chinese EVs out there where you just get a dashboard and then like an iPad right in the middle, but this car has a plethora of actual controls, so it feels much more familiar to someone like me. You even have a start-stop button over here. And you might ask, like, why do you still need that? Lots of cars have done away with it, but you know what? It's no hardship to press and start a car with a button. It even adds a sense of occasion. But let me show you the actual UI UX of this screen over here. And it's really set up like a car's. So that means there are menus and clusters of functions. It's not set up like a smartphone or a tablet where there are individual kind of apps. So there's pluses and minuses for that. You don't have to learn where all the apps are, but you also do have to learn where individual sort of settings are. Let me show you what I mean. For example, under the vehicle itself, there's something called driving assist, and that calls up a menu for all the ADAS or advanced driver assistance systems, which you can turn on and off over here. But if you go into settings, you can actually scroll down to find, let's see, driving assist. So we were just at driver assist, now we've got driving assist, and it says drive assist over there. So this is about other settings here that you can play with. So yeah, between drive assist, driver assist, and driving assist, well, it's kind of confusing. Oh, if you're wondering about how this interfaces with a smartphone, well, Apple CarPlay is present and accounted for. The good news is this is wireless. If you want to use Android Auto, you can, but then you have to plug in a cable. So you're just gonna have to upgrade to an iPhone. Now, storage, we already talked about how there's no glove box, so that means that whatever you want to store is going to be sort of over here. So I've been hiding this at the door pocket, of course, and there are a couple of cup holders between me and the front passenger seat, so I could put this here, but it's a nice tall bottle so I can grab it easily. If I had like a canned drink, not so sure how easy that would be to grab. Something to take note of. There is, of course, space underneath here, so let me just show you that it's not really very deep or very large at all. I have to lay the bottle down to get it to fit in there. So yeah, if I have like a handbag or something, it can't be too big. There is a little bit of space between the two front seats. There's a magic cover over here that opens up in two ways, so let me show you this. And using this, I can show you that, well, this is as deep as it goes. So something this height, if I want to store it away, I'm going to have to lie it down. It is fairly large, I suppose, but yeah, it's not huge. And in the absence of a glove box, I think this is something I would file under could do better. There are two trays with wireless charging though, so that is pretty handy. It's one of the things that you won't have to bring to a marriage counselor in future. So I think maybe whoever's designed this part of the car has known some pain in his life. Oh, something I can't show you is that, well, in the Subaru Solterra, there's something called X mode. That's an all-wheel drive system designed to maximize traction when you go off-roading. This is just front-wheel drive, so it doesn't have X mode. And if you want to take this car off-road, well, just don't. Like, really, don't. Okay, so finally, let's let the fingernails of quality have a go at this car. And so far I've noticed that it is a bit of a mixed bag. There are sort of medium plastics, hard plastics, and also fairly soft plastics here and there. I'd say overall it's a decent mix. And I think that the ambience of this car is such that it is fairly posh. I think that it is built better than the average Toyota. It almost feels Lexus-like in certain areas. I think it is better certainly than, say, a French car, and yeah, actually feels more high quality than some German cars now. Let me just try and break this off here, and yeah, I can barely move that. So yeah, that is a plus, and that is something I really like. And that brings me very conveniently to 3 things I like about the Toyota bZ4X. Okay, the first thing I really like about this car, I bet you knew I was going to say this, but physical switches galore. So I've got buttons on the steering wheel that control all kinds of like entertainment as well as active driving assist systems. On my right, I've got stuff like the brightness for the displays, the odometer reset, stuff like the wing mirrors. They're all here literally at my fingertips. Over on the left, now this is what I call zero layer controls for the climate control. You use them very often, so even though they're digital, they are always here. It's very handy to have them. But even though these are kind of digital, you also have a physical knob for the temperature control. So yeah, that feels very nice. Okay, your fan speed goes like by this tap, 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 but I usually leave it on auto anyway. And what's this? This is a volume knob. I mean, how handy is that? And you can mute it right away, make it louder, softer, whatever you want. Oh, I even have like a little knob here for my transmission control. And I think that's actually very handy, just much easier to figure out than some, you know, newfangled item. And lastly, my favorite, manual aircon vent control. So, you know, some cars have it digital now. You have to go into a screen and then try to guess where you want the air to end up. But yeah, this one, you just aim it at your face and you are good to go. So I think that, you know, new cars try to be newfangled. They want everything digital, and that's supposed to impress people. But if you ask me, this system works well. And those digital aircon vents are a little bit like caviar. I mean, eating caviar, everyone thinks it's kind of fancy, kind of cool, right? But is it really? Is it? The second thing I really like about this car is that it has self-parking. Yep, you just push a button and then it takes over and guides itself into a parking spot all by itself, just like a Chinese car. And well, rather than force you to watch the whole thing unfold, I have symbolically removed myself from the driving seat to show you that I am not needed while I voice over a shot of the system in action. Okay, it'll do perpendicular parking both head in and head out, but I'm gonna go for parallel parking, which is how I've embarrassed myself time and time again out there. This system is pretty unusual in the sense that you have to stop the car and then push the button and kind of hope that the car saw the parking spot that you were eyeing. In other cars, you activate the system and then only after it finds a spot do you stop the car. But here, other way around. By the way, I had Indian food for lunch today and boy, it was delicious. The reason I'm telling you that is because this thing parks itself kind of slow and steady and very carefully, unlike some of the more aggressive cars I've been in. And yeah, I kind of need to kill time while that happens. Sure enough, once it starts, you don't have to do anything. The pedals, the gear shift, the steering wheel are all under computer control, and eventually you should have a nicely parked Toyota, at which point the 360-degree camera does a little sweep around the car as if to say to you, "Ta-da, I am in the lines and everything." Not every driver needs something like this, of course, but it is rather nice to have, and it is available on the Toyota but not on the Subaru Solterra, so it's just one more thing that makes the two cars different. Okay, the third thing I really like about this car is that it feels like a car. So what's that supposed to mean? Well, many modern EVs feel very different from this. I mean, you've got a good amount of steering feedback here, and it takes bumps really well. It doesn't crash over them or jiggle over them or anything like that. And it doesn't have that numbness that you sometimes get from Chinese EVs. And I would say that the suspension is set up to be sporty and firm, but it doesn't really feel harsh. So yeah, even the brakes feel very natural in this car. And overall, I think the people who did the powertrain and the chassis really knew what they were doing. The amount of power you have feels just right for the amount of grip and traction that you have available. And yeah, this car is precise, but it's also comfortable. And yeah, it is an EV, so it is quiet. So you have a very refined car that delivers the EV experience, but it does feel like a regular car to drive. And yeah, I really like that. Okay, so let's summarize some of the key differences between this Toyota and its sister car. Compared to the Subaru Solterra, it has less power, less torque, and it doesn't have all-wheel drive, but it does have slightly longer range. It is slower in terms of acceleration, but it comes with a smaller road tax bill. It has that annoyingly round steering wheel that kind of gets in the way of the instruments, but it does come with self-parking. It does have a plainer sound system, but it does have a slightly better warranty. Yep, this is a Toyota and they do stand by their engineering. So the traction battery on this car has a warranty of 10 years. The rest of the vehicle is 6 years. And even though the Subaru is the same car, it has a slightly different warranty, 8 years for the battery and 5 years for the vehicle. They both come with 10 years free servicing. Okay, there is no such thing as free servicing because that's kind of baked into the purchase price up front, but still, it is kind of nice to take your car into the workshop and then take it back out without having to whip your wallet out. Okay, so I think the decision between a Subaru Solterra and this is actually pretty straightforward. The bZ4X is a more pragmatic choice, whereas the Subaru gives you more performance and a bit more plushness. Although I should point out that a dual motor, slightly higher grade version of the bZ4X is on its way to Singapore. I think the bigger question is, what about the sea of EVs from China and America that are all out there vying for your attention and your dollar? Well, I think this is actually nicer to drive than many Chinese EVs. It feels more connected, it rides really well, and it's less confusing to use. It doesn't feel like a smartphone on wheels. If you're making that transition between combustion and electric, well, this car isn't going to force you to relearn everything just so that you can operate it from day to day. And here's something else. There are some people out there who just want nothing to do with Chinese cars, and I often tell them, hey, don't rule them all out. Here's a couple that you should test drive, try them on for size, and see if you like them. And ironically, I think the same applies here. Yes, Chinese EVs are hot right now, but I would definitely add this to my shopping list and definitely take it for a test drive to try on for size. The same advice applies here. Don't rule it out automatically. 看我的功夫